Manners maketh man.
When I think of this line from Kingsman: The Secret Service, I usually think of the dope fight scene that follows it rather than wondering what the saying actually means. This makes sense since both of the first two Kingsman movies put much more focus on action than themes. Despite this, both movies have thematic concepts that they engage with. So in this video, I want to compare where they succeed and where they fall short in approaching their themes. I'm Evan Wessman, and this is an interior analysis of Kingsman. Normally, I prefer movies that have a strong theme. But in reality, there are a lot of movies that are just trying to be entertaining and nothing more. In some cases, such popcorn movies will try to act like they're about something larger, or make an attempt at social commentary. Probably the most famous example of this is how all the Fast and Furious movies have a part where Vin Diesel says something like,
"I don't have friends. I got family."
Even though as far as I can tell, those movies have yet to actually say anything about
Family.
I would consider both Kingsman movies to be popcorn entertainment first and foremost, but both engage with a different thematic concept. Secret Service engages with class, and Golden Circle centers around the war on drugs. Neither of them dwell that much on these topics, but there are a few ways that Secret Service engages with its theme more effectively than Golden Circle. Let's look at Golden Circle first. The plot of the movie engages directly with the war on drugs, as the villain's plan essentially threatens a genocide against drug users. Right out of the gate, I see this choice of theme as a problem. The war on drugs is a controversial issue, which isn't to say that movies shouldn't deal with it, but it's too complex and controversial of a subject matter to be approached in a meaningful way by a movie like Kingsman that's primarily just trying to have fun. The controversial nature of the subject matter leads into Golden Circle's next shortcoming, which is that it takes a weak stance on its issue, despite being relatively consistent. The text of the movie goes out of its way to not be either explicitly for or against drug legalization, which makes sense, since taking one side or the other could have easily alienated or polarized viewers. The most definitive statement it makes is pretty much genocide bad. So it gives a thematic answer that's moderate enough not to piss anyone off, but doesn't provide much meaningful commentary. Again, given what Kingsman is, I wouldn't expect or want Golden Circle to engage with the war on drugs to the extent of a movie like Traffic. But even with its middle ground stance, there are ways that it could have engaged with its theme more effectively. To Golden Circle's credit, the war on drugs is woven into the central plot of the movie, and the characters all have different relationships to the thematic concept. We get some characters who are drug users and others who aren't, as well as some who are pro-legalization and anti-legalization. However, our protagonists, Eggsy, Merlin, and Harry, are only connected to the theme indirectly, and none of the characters, major or minor, change their relationship to it, unless you count Eggsy's friend saying,
"I'm never touching that shit again!"
after being cured. And seeing as he shows up for about 3 minutes of screen time and is paralyzed for half the movie, I don't count that. One specific change that could have improved the movie's thematic conversation is if one character committed to one side of the argument in the climax. Agent Whiskey could have actually been redesigned to do this pretty easily. If Whiskey had been struggling with whether he wanted to stop Poppy's genocide and committed to fighting Eggsy and Harry at the end, I think that would have been a more effective choice. The movie would still have a neutral thematic answer, but it would have been delivered stronger if Whiskey being the surprise villain had been a choice rather than a reveal. Now let's look at how Secret Service does each of these things more effectively. The concept of social class has been dealt with in complex and challenging ways by several movies. Secret Service isn't trying to be Parasite, but it approaches class in a way that's simple and not controversial while still saying something meaningful. Like with Golden Circle, it ties class into the central plot. Valentine's plan is to massacre the lower classes and save the 1%. And it features major characters from high and low classes, as well as some who see class as an indicator of worth, and others who don't. But an important difference from Golden Circle is that Eggsy is designed to directly engage with class differences. Eggsy is from a lower class background, which is highlighted throughout the Kingsman trials as he competes against upper class candidates.
Are you Oxford or Cambridge?
Neither.
This relationship has changed from the start to the end of the movie, as Eggsy has risen to a higher social class, but is not elitist or ashamed of his lower class roots. Now let's talk for a minute about My Fair Lady. Eggsy references My Fair Lady twice.
My point is that the lack of a silver spoon has set you on a certain path, but you needn't stay on it. If you're prepared to adapt and learn, you can transform.
Oh, like in My Fair Lady.
Oh, I don't full of surprises.
So you're gonna teach me how to talk proper like in My Fair Lady?
Don't be absurd. Being a gentleman has nothing to do with one's accent. It's about being at ease in one's own skin.
You don't really need to know anything about it to understand what he's saying, but for those who don't know, My Fair Lady is a musical about a pair of upper-class British language nerds who make a bet about whether they can teach a lower-class British woman to pass for upper-class by getting rid of her accent and giving her some fancy clothes. If you've ever seen a Hallmark movie with Julia Stiles called The Makeover, it's the same story except they gender flip the main roles and give them slightly different names and set it in 2013 Boston. The ideological debate between Arthur and Harry about recruiting a lower-class candidate seems somewhat inspired by, or at least is similar to, My Fair Lady.
He was as much Kingsman material as any of them. More so.
But he wasn't exactly one of us, was he? Let's face it, Galahad. Your little experiment failed.
So when Eggsy references My Fair Lady, he's expecting that Harry wants him to assimilate into the upper class and abandon all of his lower class upbringing. But this isn't the case.
Being a gentleman has nothing to do with the circumstances of one's birth. Being a gentleman is something one learns.
Harry shows Eggsy that being a gentleman isn't about class status. It's about carrying yourself with confidence and respecting people of all backgrounds. And yeah, having a fly-ass bulletproof suit doesn't hurt either. But he never looks down on Eggsy's background or makes him try to unlearn anything from his upbringing.
As Hemingway said, there is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self.
Eggsy's street smarts even come into play in a crucial moment when Arthur offers to give Eggsy immunity from Valentine's genocide with the 1%.
The problem with us common types is that we're light-fingered. Kingsman's taught me a lot, but sleight of hand.
Yes, they're founder members.
I had that down already.
And while it maybe leans too hard into lower-class criminal stereotypes, it would be pretty hard to argue that the upper classes are glorified when this is what happens to them in the climax. So even if the depiction of class is not very nuanced, Secret Service is consistent by not overly demonizing or glorifying either social class. The thematic answer essentially boils down to manners maketh man. A person's class standing doesn't matter, only what they do. This could be called a cliché thematic answer, but it is a strong answer, and is consistently reinforced, albeit very lightly, throughout the story. It also isn't likely to alienate any viewers, and is much stronger than Golden Circle's thematic answer, which is pretty much just, don't do genocide. Ideally, I'd like to see more big-budget studio movies that are both entertaining and have really strong themes. And in fairness, we've had some recent blockbusters like Black Panther's Soul, Blade Runner 2049, and Mad Max Fury Road that do pretty well at dealing with complex themes. On the other hand, sometimes I prefer it when something that's just meant to be entertaining owns up to that fact. I think the John Wick movies are better because they aren't pretending to say anything about revenge or grief, and put most of their focus on making amazing fight scenes. But of course, we'll continue to get popcorn movies that half-ass their themes. It might not always be feasible to employ all of the strategies that Secret Service uses in its approach to theme, but I would like to see more movies follow in its example, rather than just slap on a theme in an inconsistent or non-committal way just to act like they're about something. Also, if we could get an action scene in Kingsman 3 that rivals the church fight, that'd be great. Hey guys, hope you got something out of that. I thought about including The Kingsman, the prequel movie from this past year, in the video, but ultimately thought it would be best just to compare these two. We did a podcast episode on our Patreon comparing Secret Service and Golden Circle a while back, and you can access that for $1 a month, along with some other bonus content like our live watch-alongs. The link for that is in the description. If there's a movie or topic you want us to cover in a future video or podcast, let us know in the comments. And also, let us know what your favorite Kingsman fight scene is. Aside from the church fight, because obviously that one's just the GOAT. For me, it's a tie between probably the skydiving scene and the one where Eggsy is escaping Valentine's headquarters while Roxy takes out the satellite. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.